Hello, everybody, and welcome to House of Horrors. Here we are with Kris Straub, which has agreed to come here and talk to us about creepypasta, horror, whatever. We'll see. How you doing?
I'll speak on whatever is requested of me. I'm okay. I'm a little bit tired, a little bit sleepy.
Me too. I think it's a Sunday night vibe.
Yeah, I
Cozy
accept.
vibes for the
Yeah,
stream. It's good.
calming. That's exactly what I need. I need a delicate, gentle air to put me to rest to sleep.
There's nothing like the mix of cozy, chill, sleepy vibes with horror. It matches perfectly.
It's something to snuggle into, definitely. It's a it. I mean, both of them make you want to stay in bed under covers. So
That's a good
there's a
point.
lot in common. Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay, I know you were
people
like,
have a habit of like I usually stream my horror art and it's just like gross stuff, but I have chill music in the background, and people tend to like just chill and fall asleep. I'm like doing horrible things and body horror, and I don't know. I
yeah.
don't know why that mixes in that way, but if it works.
No, I'm saying like you were saying like I don't necessarily have to pay attention to the chat actively, but I will be anyway. But Sora says, "Watch Kris fall asleep to Val's voice, just like every other person." So this is now a sleep off because I've definitely been told that my voice will put people into a coma. It's very
Asleep.
calm. So if by
That's
the end
true.
of this everyone is asleep, then that's ideal.
Yeah,
I think we
we've
did
done
our
our
job.
job. We've done our job. That is true. So yeah, okay, we were talking about a couple things as we were like setting up and starting things off. I think like first thing we're gonna set up is like people can ask anything in chats. Sora's gonna be there to gather things in case we miss messages because messages are going fast. So we'll try to catch up with questions if there are any. We're not gonna like answer lore questions though. Like we're not here to talk about the secret lore of Local 58, unless Kris wants to spoil everything right now. But
Sure, let's just do it. I think I'm tired. Nobody figured it out yet, and it's very disappointing for me. So let's just blow it open.
let's just do
Absolutely.
it. ARGs, screw that. Well, let's just say
Nah, we're done. Although I'll say this though on that. I know that when I started to do the website for Local 58, some people said, "No, I don't want this. I want more videos. I don't want it to be like a
Really?
puzzle to unlock." I mean, I think a lot of people were happy to have more content.
Yeah.
But to me, it wasn't like this is a this is a puzzle that you have to solve before I'm willing to give you more of it. Or, I think an early approach to the website was let's scrape the whole thing. People were like, these ports are open. Was that purposeful? Let's go in there and try to get inside. And I was like, please don't do that. I'm by myself doing this. I upload new stuff as I make it. It's not sitting there waiting to be found. So, and I will let you know when there's more to go find. But to
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
it was not as much like an ARG to piece together as a method of delivering more lore and content,
Yeah,
just to make
it's
it feel
some
like of the world.
yeah, some extra content. Not like, oh, there's a secret video that's hidden
Yeah.
waiting to be unlocked. That's already done.
Yeah. I don't want it to be as obtuse as that. If there's puzzles, I want it to be fun and interesting to piece together,
Yeah.
not a labor, not something that you have to brute force, and try to put every possible combination in. No, that's okay.
Oh my god,
That's not fun.
we should like off stream, but we should talk like the puzzles and ARG clues and stuff because I've been like practicing. I've been like putting my toe in that water
Hmm.
for specifically for a thing I do, like postcards I send to my Patreon patrons. I just put a little puzzle in the back, something like that. It's like
Oh yeah,
those kinds of
that's cool.
things. I'm like dipping my toes into that. I would love to do something a bit more
It
elaborate though.
just adds a little extra flavor. I think that's it. Is like I want the puzzles to reward people who are paying attention, but I don't want them to get in the way of people that aren't paying attention. Like I want it to be enjoyable for both. Like it should be an extra layer. It's not like,
A necessity to
oh, if you
understand
didn't
the rest, or
yeah, like if you couldn't get the puzzle right, then you are missing so much. Like I don't want it to feel like that because that's not as much fun.
Jordan wants us to talk about puzzles now. No, but we're not gonna, we don't want to spoil the things, Jordan.
Yeah, well, I'll say this: there's two kinds of puzzles I've seen. There's ones that nobody ever will figure out, and then there's ones where you're like, this is very clever, and they figure it out in 5 minutes.
Yes.
So
Oh my God. Yes. I've definitely seen that with the ones I do for the patrons. I there's things I do. I do a little puzzle. And I'm like, this is gonna be so easy to figure it out. They just have to connect these two things that I think are very obvious to me, and I put it out, and nobody's able to solve it. And then there's the other way around.
yeah,
I do this thing. I'm like, nobody's gonna figure out this clue. I'm just gonna put it out there, and maybe someone will solve it and tell the others, and it's solved in a minute.
immediate.
Immediately.
Yeah,
It's crazy. Puzzles are hard, y'all. If you okay, this is for chat. If you ever see like an ARG or something, and like keep in mind that it's just someone out there making it, and puzzles are very hard, so don't give them a hard time.
yeah. I'm not a puzzle maker. I don't consider myself like that's not what I like to do. I just enjoy. I feel like it needs to be there.
Hmm.
And I want it to fit that world. Um, yeah, because there's not, I mean, talking about horror or any kind of games for that matter, like Resident Evil, where you go into the house and it's like, why do I have to find this part that fits this part of this clock? And like, it's like solve this Rubik's Cube to open the door. I don't
Hmm.
want to, that has nothing to do with anything.
It's
Why
very
would they
gamey,
build this?
right?
Yeah,
It only makes sense within the world of the game. But yeah, it's.
yeah.
I think a lot of people are very tuned into, and the internet are very tuned into these ARG things, and some of them are incredibly complex and done by teams and really super well thought out, like really
Oh,
really
yeah.
complex stuff. So if they see a crumb to follow anything, they'll just dig to incredible depths.
This is also there's the balance between verisimilitude and commerce, like an actual commercial concern. For example, for the most recent Local 58 video,
Yeah.
there's the phone number, and I'm charged when it's called. I get to pay that, and it's fun to have.
Yeah, that seems
But
expensive.
when can I say I shut it down? Because also I release it to the ether when it's shut down.
Hmm.
That means that some other business can grab it.
That's true.
And I'm like, well, I don't want that to just go to whoever. So it's like, well, should I just carry this cost at this point? And people again were like trying to brute force, like, what if I send it this? What if I
Oh,
call it
so they
at this
were
time of
like,
day?
oh my God.
And it's like, oh, okay,
Oh.
that's all right. That's fine. I thought it would be neat.
It's
But
neat. It's neat. It's very
it's
cool.
neat and
But
expensive.
yeah, but I guess people don't realize that the cost behind that.
If I was smart, I would have made it a number that where they pay to do it. Like,
Yeah.
I should have done it that way.
Maybe you get a little little part of that.
Yeah, and then I wait, it's like stay on the line to find the secret. And then by then 5 minutes have passed and I'm getting 30 cents a minute.
That's
The whole business model right
exactly. That's the whole business model. That's how ARGs can be monetized. We got it. We solved it. But yeah, I didn't realize that part. Of course, it makes a lot of sense. And anything like websites, domains, all that stuff.
Oh, sure.
You got to pay. You can maintain it if you want like people to be able to see it later. when do you shut it down, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's tricky because then it's like, but I mean, so I've fought against this idea a lot. I mean, I've been doing content online for 22 years, but most of it was comics. That was what I mostly had been doing before, and a lot of humor. So like horror, I've always been interested in it, but it was relatively new for me to approach. You were saying you just started doing this like 3 years ago or something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. When I started basically like a month or two into the pandemic. I was doing like vibrant, happy, and colorful, surreal art before that.
That's not satisfying in the same way.
Yeah.
You need an escape from that. Oh, what was I gonna say? Oh shoot, I lost the thread of it. Doing comics, something about is that the idea that like content that's ephemeral makes me very nervous. I don't like the idea of something that is like a phone call where it vanishes once it's done and you're left with the sense of it, but nobody else who comes late can experience it. Like I feel weird about it, you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, I guess that
Like
there's always
we're
going to
having this
be.
conversation and that's important, but like it's archived and there'll be places where people can see it.
Yeah.
Um I don't know, there's a balance though to it because I think it
Eventually,
makes it
eventually it'll go
special.
away. Everything will rot away into. You know what I saw recently that really made me think about that specific like things decay and stuff. It's definitely nothing to do with internet horror, but I was doing a hike through a forest recently, and it's this hike trail where somebody's built some statues, and they're very beautiful statues of like folklore creatures and characters, and they're all made of branches and leaves and just trash that's flowing down this little stream, right? And they're all like they had been there for a few years, so the wooden masks that were beautifully carved were all full of moss and fungi, and it's this kind of thing where you're seeing this thing that's ephemeral in a way. It's just going to last a few years, and one day it'll just decay into the forest again. And the fact that you've seen it while it was there, it makes it somewhat more beautiful, I think. So maybe
Yeah,
just
I
like the
think
act
it's
of being there in this ephemeral thing that won't last forever, it also has its own value. It's a balance, of course. But
Yeah, I think it's funny that we do, like, having said that, you're right, that I like to imagine that there's forever, but there's none. Yeah, on huge time scales, like nothing will persist. We're not gonna, where's the archive of this gonna be in 60 years? There won't, yeah, I don't know. Probably not. Probably won't be there
yeah, yeah, of course, it's
unless
everything.
it's on the blockchain.
Oh my
Then
god.
you keep it safe forever for all generations.
Yes, the blockchain,
No.
that beautiful technology. It's- Uh, but oh my god, the whole blockchain thing, when it starts disappearing, when people start losing their monkey JPEGs, that's gonna be a whole thing, right?
That's going to be a very interesting period in our history as a species.
As a species,
And
yes.
that no alien that comes down says, "What happened?" Well, I had pictures of a monkey and a hat, and I paid $800,000 for it, and it's gone. Wow. Then the spaceships leave. They leave. They're
They
not
shouldn't-
interested. I don't know what's on this planet, but it's not for us.
It's not worth it. They're just fighting over monkey JPEGs. Like, there's better things to do in space.
Ah.
I guess talking about this whole like ephemeral things and how they are archived. I was thinking that there's always going to be all those videos like covering, like even if the ARG has happened and it's gone and it's done, there's going to be a million videos like describing what happened. It's obviously like not the original thing. It's editorialized. It's storytelling in its own way.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be there in that way and let people like see, like people who got there late, a few years late, that's still gonna be able to see it. Like, for example, somebody was asking, have you seen the Nexpo video essays on Local 58?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're sturdy. I like his work. But you're right that like if you even if you weren't there to experience it, there's people picking it apart, and then there'll be like a time exclusivity to it where, I mean, if it was sufficiently interesting for a generation,
Hmm.
then the prior generation's like, oh, you should have been there when this happened. Like I've seen that I remember people talking about that in uh, like Eve Online, that game, like the
Hmm.
world building of the spaceships and everything, where it's like this faction, this coalition fought against this one, and it's all invented by the players. It's not like built into the story,
Yeah,
and it makes it
I
so
keep
much more
reading about
special.
that game, that like
I
all the
haven't.
crazy
I tried
things.
to play it. It's super
It's
complicated, and
it
I
seems
was
so
not interested.
complicated. It's like way out of.
Yeah, but in the same way, like I have played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons
Mhm.
in a professional context. But the idea of it being this is stuff that is meaningful to this group of people, and we can look back on it as stories like that we told that actually happened to our characters, and
Hmm.
it's important to us, and that's way more special than say I never liked how like in it was World of Warcraft, which I barely have played,
Hmm.
but it always bothered me that everybody you talk to is like, "Hey, hero, you're the best one in the world. Come do this." It's like there's 5 million of them. There's
Yeah,
5 million of the best in the world. I'd love to be talked to as an average
an average
character,
guy.
not
Yeah,
the
yeah.
savior. Like
I
that's
think like
okay.
you RPGs, like tabletop RPGs, are the best way of doing that, because inevitably in a video game, it's always going to get gamey, and you're going to have that.
It's like everything counts on you, character who we don't have a voice line for because it's the name you typed in. Like, well, yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
happens.
Yeah, we got a question here. Do you do all the video stuff for Local 58, or is it a collab?
I do it all.
I was
I
gonna ask that.
collaborate with the past.
You've worn so many hats. I keep like I was under the impression that, for example, the animation with the skull was the name of the character.
A cadaver.
Cadaver, yes.
Yeah.
Um, I wasn't under the impression that someone else had animated it, and I was rewatching Local 58 the other day to to keep it fresh in my mind for today. I was like, animated all by you. And I'm like, what? How are you wearing so many hats in this? You're doing everything.
I am doing it, and it's because I'm interested in it, and I like it as a practice, and I like. I mean, if I had come from a non comic strip background, maybe maybe it would reflect that, and I wouldn't have done an animation.
Yeah.
But I always felt like I was good at noticing at like pattern recognitions or identifying why a certain thing works, and then just regurgitating it. I think I'm good at that. I think I can find the tone of a thing,
Mhm.
which is sort of why a lot of other stuff is a letdown in ways, because it's like this is a great idea, this is a great execution, but then there's little elements where it's like, oh, that's not what that looks like, or there wasn't enough attention paid to this part.
Mhm.
And I understand that everything is a compromise in terms of, is it clear to the viewer, or do we just have to fudge this because it won't make sense
Yeah.
if it's as it would be in real life.
I
Um,
I I um I struggle with that a
yeah,
lot in all my Photoshop stuff. There's always the uh, readability, I guess, of the thing, like how clear it is to the viewer what you're trying to say, the story you're trying to express, versus realism. Those like often like they conflict so much. Sometimes you're trying,
yeah,
like if I'm doing a Photoshop thing, and you have this creature shrouded in mists, and you're trying to fit it to a very misty picture, you'll have to fudge it and make the silhouette like super clear, because then like just nobody will see it, and what's the point if
Yeah,
nobody sees it, even if it's like super
yeah.
realistic.
I was very much like I come from a I think I have a pretty unique upbringing and skill set because my parents were engineers and scientists and doctors, and that was what I was going to do. I was going to be a computer programmer. I was going to be a software developer, which I did for a while. Um, but I wasn't. I was okay at it, but I was better at a lot of other things. Um, and uh, my dad and I will have this argument about stuff because he is very much of a nitpicker for details where it's like I have to concede this detail because if we fight with it, then there's no story, then nothing happens. One of my favorite examples was he saw the movie Arrival,
Hmm.
and uh, my dad is a physicist. Um, and I was like, "What did you think of it?" He's like, "It's not whatever." I said, "Oh, why?" Like, when they get in the ship and then everybody's walking sideways on the ship because gravity works sideways, that wouldn't happen. I was like, I don't know. I guess it wouldn't happen, but it was just a neat story thing to
Yeah,
show how different it is on the ship. And he's like, nah. And like that made him write the movie off and just be like, no,
entirely
I
write
don't
the
want
movie
that.
off. Like you're
Yeah, dumb.
nitpicky. Oh my god. I guess I
Yeah.
get there's people of all types. There's people who will hand wave any detail, and there's people who nitpick, and I guess yeah, those two polar opposites.
I like to think that there's a way to make it cohere without being nonsense, right? I
Yeah,
want there to be a reason why there, and I understand why you have to fudge it, like the silhouette of the creature in the mist. Like you have to call it out, even though in real life you wouldn't see it. But I want you to see it because this is my picture I'm making.
exactly.
But I feel like there's a way to make it sit together and not um, be an abrupt suspension of disbelief. You know?
Yeah, I was looking for that phrase, suspension of disbelief. It's the
Yeah, that's the puzzle.
That's a puzzle, and I think
Yeah.
the more realistic you try to make your thing, like the more integrated into the real world, the more
Hmm.
you have to fight. Like the less people will suspend their disbelief, so the more you have to fight to make it more realistic. More when like if I took any of my Photoshop things and made them a painting instead, people will nitpick any details. But if I make it a
Yeah.
Photoshop thing, people will say, "Oh, look at those pixels."
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm impressed by, I was thinking about this recently, like seeing how we were watching our son and like there was light coming in the window and he was sitting at the table and he had like, his face is cast by the light on this side. And then you have the subsurface scattering under the skin, like the translucency where it's glowing kind of
Hmm.
red. And how the light is on one tooth and it's very bright, and then on the other one it looks almost it's like a brown, like a yellow. Even though I know that it's the same temperature of white, it's the same tone. And I was thinking, in real life, as I'm looking at it, I buy it completely. Of course I do. But if you simulated it and animated that and did it exactly the same way, and your light model was exactly the same as real life, I would say that's too bright.
That looks
That
fake.
looks like
Yeah.
he's glowing. It looks like it's fake. Why didn't they tone that down? But yeah, it's tough to know how it will be parsed.
Oh my god, I
Uh,
have had people try to nitpick my Photoshop stuff and point out things that are that are entirely real that I did not edit at all as fake. It happens
right,
like quite often because people are just like keen to look for the fake things, and if I've done my job well and I've all the edges look right and all that, they may just focus on something that is completely wrong, which
right.
is great to me. It's fantastic because it means they tried to nitpick and they failed, and so I did my
Yeah,
job.
it's what do they call it? Apophenia, right? Is it the search for patterns in things, the
Mm,
understanding, the approach to a thing with the knowledge that there's a pattern to be discovered when maybe there is none. I think that's fascinating, and that's what humans are designed to do.
Yeah. Our brains are
But I wonder if it's
incredibly
like
good at it.
but for this, for like looking at one of your drawings, it's like the wrong approach. It's like the opposite of the scientific method, where it's like, I know that I'm being fooled, so the question is how? Well, that door can't be there. It's like, no, the door was there in the picture. That's not what I did. That's in the picture. And it's like, because they're trying to break it. They want to be the
Exactly.
one to figure it out.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly. It,
yeah.
it happens. There's this specific type of person that it tends to happen when something goes viral and it goes like away from the horror sphere.
Hmm.
There's this specific kind of person who uh, wants to see you as this like person spreading this information, this fake thing. I've had one person literally saying like, "Oh, this is the year 2021, and you're doing this is what's eroding our society." I'm paraphrasing, but something like that.
Well, you
Was
like you're
incredibly
putting
funny.
lies out there. Yeah. That actually is a good this is a one of the early issues that I had with Kendall Cove and its proliferation on the internet, its sharing on the internet. Because like, and my answer is, or the way I approach it is like, as an artist, I like that it was taken and spread because it had more meaning and weight.
Mm.
As you know, if you take my name off of it and you say, look at what I found on a forum, and people would say, "Oh my God, I can't believe that that was real," and I would get upset because it's like, but why would is it scarier because somebody didn't make it? And it's true, like, because if you could trace it back and somebody says, "Oh, it
Mm.
was fake," then okay. Um, but as a business person, I was like, no, but my name should be on there. Why is it less scary when you
Oh,
know that somebody wrote it? Somebody wrote it.
I struggle with that.
But
That was literally one of the things I had noted down to ask you before the stream because this is, I think that
uh,
question of people taking names away and specifically with horror stuff because the fact that it's this unknown origin that might be real is this extra element to it, which on the one hand you understand how it makes sense and how it can amplify the horror, but on the other one it sucks because like I made it.
I had one of the very first comments on the first Local 58 video was, "This is great, except the credits at the end break immersion."
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, but did you like it before the credits? Like when you go to the movie theater, do you? What's gonna happen? Oh my God, the end? What? Who are these people's names? This was fake. This is. I hate this. This is not a good. This is a
Yeah.
terrible documentary. Like I don't understand what you want out of it. Um, but I do understand that like something happened on the internet where um, like a curator became elevated to the level of a creator.
Mm.
So if you find something and you share it, then you get some credit for finding it. But then if there's a name on it, somehow it detracts from your bringing it to people. So they would just cut the credit off. And
Yeah.
then you're somehow the generator of it. I found this. Who made it? No one. But I'm bringing it to you. So you get the credit for the discovery. And I
That's true.
understand that the appeal, the cachet of being the one who did it, but it's a bummer. Like I would love to, you know, be acknowledged as the person that did it rather than it just came from nowhere.
Hmm.
I understand why though in horror, like you want it to come from a scary place and be a story that the origin is lost. But I feel like there's room to do that in a nice way. It's like the difference between in the channel somebody said it was a hoax or fake news.
Hmm.
The goal of what I'm doing was never to be false, to trick people with. It's
Hmm.
just like, this is neat, right? Isn't this a neat idea? But it's not like, hey, this is real and we should be afraid of it and send this to people and scare them into
Yeah.
thinking it's real. That's not the point.
And there's also the you know the fact that if it gets shared around in this way, like they've taken your credit off, but the fact that it got viral, did that eventually bring more people to you for the people who traced it back and did actually find the like that's something we can't calculate because we don't have the alternative world where everybody was nice and they all posted Camel Cove with your name below it. We don't
Yeah,
know
I
how
think
much that could have balanced the scales. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's a
Like
thing to think about.
I think I mean for that one, the turning point was when on Twitter, Max Landis had tweeted, "Who wants to see me make a Kennel Cove movie?" And I tweeted back, "I would love to be on that conversation because I wrote it." And then we were corresponding, and then that's was sort of the long road to how it turned into Channel Zero, the first season.
Oh, okay. I
But it,
didn't know that
but
was an origin there.
but if that had been if that hadn't occurred, I don't know that anybody. I mean, I still think nobody knows that I did it, and that's fine. Like, because it serves a purpose to them, and what it is to that person is, oh, this was scary and I like it, rather than, oh, I need to know who made this, because that may
I
not
think
mean anything to them.
nowadays, like back in those old Wild West creepypasta days, I think like nobody knew where any of them came from because they tended to be anonymous,
Yeah,
most of them.
yeah,
Nowadays, I think if you ask people, at least that like, I guess maybe the new generation that's been exposed to Counter Cove, like indirectly, not during that first boom, I guess, they
mm,
probably they probably would be able to say who made it. They probably like I think you're well known as it is enough that people can recognize, or at least a sizable chunk of people.
yeah. At least those who know of it, maybe,
Hmm.
right? Like, I don't know. Again, it depends on how they want to engage with it. Like, if you want to engage with it as a, you know, let's look at in the mirror at night and repeat, you know, scary names. Like, I don't care who made that up. Like, I just want to enjoy it. I just want to be scared.
It's a campfire
Um,
story.
yeah. And I even think like even that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But then again when commerce enters it and it's like, oh, they're making a movie of my thing that I made up. I'm like, oh, you can't do that. That's not okay. Unless you're fine with it. Some people are fine
Some
with
people
it.
will be fine. I guess, yeah. I don't know. Depends on if you wanna say like, okay, this is something like I've put it out on the internet, but maybe I want to try and make a living out of art and try to make more. This is something you have an incentive to keep it
Yeah.
attached to your name in a way, not let it escape
Yeah,
that much.
even if it's not about like the sale of this object, it's about I would love it if you did like it, then I want people to know where they could see more things like that because I make things like that. And how will they come and find me if they don't know where it came from? Type of
Hmm.
a thing.
I think it's definitely
Yeah.
better nowadays, though. It
It's better
still
now. I think
happens
the
a lot.
tools are there. Yeah, it still happens, but maybe there's more um I feel like there's more audience crediting, like
Hmm.
making the effort too. So if somebody posts this like this is I like this a lot, and then there are replies that's like, oh, that's from this.
Hmm.
I feel like there's accountability.
Yeah, I mean that. I think the audience thing, it starts happening at a point where you have a platform and you do have an audience. If they steal like small creators things, they will never. There's never going to be the. Or it's very rare that there'll be the audience to recognize it, I guess. But like for
Yeah,
example,
yeah,
someone Chaos in chat says, "I hate what happened to Trevor Henderson's Siren Head." In a way, yes, because it got like completely uh, exploded and bastardized in like a million ways. On the other
yeah,
hand, Trevor Henderson was like his name was attached to it in at least most of these occasions.
Yeah.
People
So
can
he
still
got
trace it back to Trevor and say, "Oh, this is a Trevor Henderson creature," and then others got viral thanks to this, and it's still like fed back
oh
to him, like it
I
in a way. Like, of course, like how does he feel about that? That's
it's also like in addition to that,
Mm,
like it he has a he also has done a lot of Siren Head art, and where people could say, "Oh, I want more of it," and he's making it great. And so the
mm,
connection was it was easier there as opposed to like a one-off. If it had been one image of Siren Head that fired people's imaginations, and then but he didn't make any more, it would be much harder to trace it back. And I have an image like that. It was the pee pee poo poo man from what do you call it? What was that movie? What was that stupid movie?
oh, oh,
The Bye Bye Man. That's right. That's what it's from.
did you make
Um,
that?
I did make that,
I
and
had
I
no
didn't make
idea.
more because who cares? But was it? You say his name. He won't. You won't be laughing when he kills you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made that, and as a joke, I don't care that that's my name isn't on it. That's fine.
Yeah.
But
Because it was like a meme thing that you did, and it
yeah, I just did it to screw
escaped.
around because the
Mm.
Bye Bye Man is a dumb idea, and I just want to have. Mm,
Oh yeah, I
yeah,
never connected it. I never saw. I
in
never.
that case, I don't care
Yeah.
unless you told me that somebody else made millions of dollars from
The pee pee
the Pee
poo
Pee
poo.
Poo Poo Man, and then I would stand up and proudly exclaim my
Awesome.
ownership, my sole right to the usage.
Oh my god, we're talking about uh, Candle Cove and Local 58. I was rereading Candle Cove as well, and first, like, it's probably like if you reread old creepypastas, it is definitely the standout. Like, to me, I remember loving it when it came out, and loving the story. But like other creepypastas from that era are, you reread them today, and God, they were so
There,
badly
it's a
written.
rough,
It's
it's a
for
rough ride.
it's a rough
Um,
ride, but Kaneko stands out. Like, it's still like you read it today, and it's very well written. Like, it does what it
I
needs to
feel
do.
like,
It's not over long. It just delivers. And
yeah, I think there for a long while there were a lot of people who said it's based on something though, right? Because I remember some of this, and it's like no, like it was. I think that it was successful because it was so vague. Like we can imagine the bad puppetry, and we can imagine these things, and it's coherent enough that it's like I could believe that that was a show somewhere.
yeah,
Um, yeah, but I think that to be more specific would have messed it up. And I think that being more specific in most of these makes them boring,
yeah.
makes them not as interesting. Because I remember there was a lot of like, where is it from? Like, what's the problem behind it? What's the secret? What's doing it? And I was like, I don't want to answer it. Like, I have an idea of where, um, like the place I have a to weave Local 58 into it. I have a place from which I write, um, or I make up the scenarios that are in Local 58, and it's the same place that from which Candle Cove would have come from.
That
So
was the connection I was about to make. Yeah, I realized that the
yeah,
channel that Kaneko was in was Local 58, and
yeah, and
that
that's
was very
because I
cool.
saw a lot of when I lived in Los Angeles, and there was like a second run um, public television station, which was Channel 58. Uh, Whereas all the money went to Channel 28, which is where I could see Sesame Street and all that stuff. But then Channel 58 always showed like old film strips from the 70s, like they had no budget.
Mm.
And we'd watch it when I was home from school. It's like, this is weird and bad. Um, and it was just this feeling of unease, um, because the core, is so interesting. Um, and I've said this other places too, but um, there was a show on there which you can
Mm.
actually find on YouTube. The show is called Inside Out. It was developed. I don't want to. It was a Canadian television. I don't know. But they were film strips, and they were about 15 minutes long, and each of them was like a morality play where kids would be like, "Hey, you're bullying me," or whatever the issue is. But they were designed to, I think, be an educational tool. They would be shown in a classroom, and they would end, and then the teacher would lead a discussion with the class
Mm.
about that, where it's like, okay, what do we think about what we just saw? Was it right that this kid bullied this one? Was it right that this kid stole this? And how could they have done differently? But when you're watching it at home by yourself, there's no resolution. It's just a question, and then it's over. It was unlike, there was not a show.
So
It was
strange. I love that.
so it was so bizarre. Somebody has uploaded a bunch of them too, and they were like weirdly shot in the mid 70s, and a lot of those editing choices were strange, and just that mood stuck with me.
What's the name? Inside
Uh,
Out?
Inside Out, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that
I know
one
I've
out.
seen them on there before, but it's so bizarre. Um, but why would you? And then part of why I like, or Local 58 too, is like, why would this be presented to you? Right? It's like,
Mm.
who put this on thinking this is a good idea? And like, if you're running the station, and you're like, I'll throw this up because we have them. Why would you do it? Like, who is it for? Are there kids at home watching this, or is it just you have to have
Full
content,
time.
or they
Yeah.
take your license? I don't know why, but
Yes, they
that
just
was
found
always,
something with very cheap rights, and they just
yeah.
played
It's like
it.
nobody's gonna sue us, so we can do this. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of harmless, I guess. But
It resembles a
yeah,
show. We can put.
it looks a little bit like there's characters, I guess, sometimes.
So
It's
then
like,
you saw that as a kid, and then
mm.
that's a memory that made you think back, like when you wrote the original Calico story. You thought back to
Oh,
that
and then
kind of
the
show,
other,
right?
yeah, the other element was, there was an article on the Onion around then, which was, it says, area man still has occasional Lidsville nightmare. And Lidsville is another, awful mid 70s kids show that I
Mm.
had seen. That's before my time, but I've seen pictures of it. And it's just cheap, and, they're being very creative with the budget they had, and it's not attractive, it's not good, it's not fun. And there's something about the disconnect between what an adult thinks is creative and neat and cool for a child to watch, and then the child watching it and being like, this is scary. I don't like
Mm.
what you've done. And how can there be such a disconnect?
Yeah,
The
and
adult is like, this is fun, right? It's like, no, you've made something terrifying. You've made something awful.
and then it's the sort of thing that you don't know like how terrifying you found it as a kid, but it kind of like seeps into your brain. It's there in the back, and when you
Yeah,
remember, you remember it with this like amplified terror, I guess.
yeah, you don't, and I think a lot of it is like, you don't have the language to describe it at the time. You don't even know, and it's being presented to you. You don't even know whether or not you're meant to be afraid. Like, what am I
Mm.
supposed to feel when I see this? Uh, there's a lot of stuff like that from childhood in general, not just mine, but
Yeah, I guess that's what a
there's,
lot of people said. Like, oh, I remember something from Calico because the story, like, I guess they conflate the story with things they remember vaguely from watching a weird
yeah,
show that kind of scared them on TV and like this
mm-hmm,
local TV cheaply produced things. It just kind of
mm-hmm,
like feeds back into
yeah. It seems like it could be the case. Yeah, there's
I
enough
assume, and
evidence.
then there's probably a lot of kids uh, saying, "Oh, pretending like, oh, I swear I saw this," like
Oh
that kind of
yeah,
thing. Like, obviously,
yeah, 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 yeah.
Enoch here in chat said that as a teenager he used to say he saw that show. So
Oh, which one?
He saw Can of
Which
Cove. Like, oh, I saw
oh,
Can of Cove as a kid. You know, like,
how dare you? You
how dare
lie. Lie to
you
people.
liar.
Terrible. Misrepresenting the product. No, it's fine.
And from the, I guess, a timeline from Can of Cove. What year was that? I think I have it.
I think it's like
2009.
2008, 9. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. To Local 58, which was 2015, I think, at least on the YouTube
It was
videos.
somewhere in there. Yeah. I was doing, I think in 2012, I started my horror comic, Brood Hollow. And I had this suite of, oh no, it was a little bit before that because Candle Cove was published on my site, Icker Falls, which
Mm,
was like a collaborative horror. I just wanted to make a town that's haunted and bad,
mm,
and then write stories for it, and then if people wanted to submit and like embroider the world, that they
mm.
could do that. And that was sort of like it was set in West Virginia, just because I had read at the time that West Virginia is a very
Very
haunted
haunted.
part of
Yes.
the US. Yeah. And apparently it's either whether it's haunted or it just sucks to live there. I mean, it's unpleasant.
Mm,
So and then Brood Hollow I set in West Virginia because I had this like this false, like these townships in Mason County uh that I wanted to just continue to embellish and build
mm.
out. Um, but I have purposely not said where Local 58 broadcasts from. We know that it broadcasts in greater Mason County area, but I
General
don't know
area.
what city they're
Yeah.
based in. Yeah, somewhere in there.
You know, it's
Because
better. It's better to leave that kind of fuzzy. It's
yeah, even the name Local 58, like people would, who were interested in doing analog horror, be like, I made one too. It's called Local 37. And it would bother me because it's not that you're not allowed to do analog horror and I'm the only that can make up a pretend channel.
mm,
It was that the term local anything is not a piece of television station nomenclature. I only
yeah.
called it that because I wanted it to feel like it was near you. Like theoretically, it doesn't matter what part of the country you're in. It might be a local station.
You
Uh,
hear Local 58, the
yeah,
channel, and you immediately know that it's this small local channel.
it's
You know this, and the
yeah,
number 58 is like way up there. And
it's
it
not
just says local, and like you get all the basic info out of the way in the name. It's very descriptive. Like it does what it needs to do. But yeah, it's not like,
yeah.
I don't know US TV station names, so I can't
There's
comment on
no
that.
local
But
anything.
there's no local anything.
If no, if anything, there is a local 58, which is a what is it? Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. It's a union
Mm,
in somewhere on the East Coast, and that's also why I changed it to Local 58 TV everywhere, because I
mm,
didn't want to step on them.
yeah.
And even though I've never been contacted or anything like that, but I thought, let me differentiate it a little bit more so that this union doesn't one day get mad. Uh,
Yeah, that makes sense. Like just keeping it
yeah,
different, at least.
I'm sure they're irritated by trying to find news about their union's goings on, and then they only
Yeah,
see
just
this.
googling their unit, and suddenly it's this this horror thing on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure they might have been confused at first. Like
At
they Google it
first,
and it's
yeah,
like theories about the horror of Local 58. Like, what
yeah.
are they saying about that
It's not
about
that
us?
bad to work here. We like our yeah.
And okay, there's another question I had for you is
Mm.
what's your feeling on the broader analog horror, which exploded after Local 58? There's a million of them that have been
I
very popular.
love to see it. I love to see it. I love to see everybody doing it, and I
Mm,
like the we people on the internet, people who are interested in making content on the internet. It's a different time in history
mm,
because we as an audience get to observe everybody and their first steps. and their attempts,
Mm,
right? And if I had made the first episode of Local 58 without having done a bunch of stuff for the past 15 years,
mm,
I I mean, I don't know if I ever would have put it up, because I would have said, no, it's not good enough. I don't know that this is okay. I should change this. I should change that. Um, so there's a lot of people that have cool ideas, and they're like, how do I do it? What do I do? And like, the advice is always, well, just start, just make one, just
just make
see.
one. Yeah.
And maybe it's not good, but it can get better. And that's sort of the, if you're interested, if you're genuinely interested in making it, then you'll be encouraged by your next one being better and the next one being better. And I think that
Yeah,
it's
and I
it's
noticed that
neat
there's
to
a lot
see all
of
those approaches.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of very young people doing analog horror, which
Yeah.
surprised me a lot because the whole conceit is like old TV that people who are, I don't know, teenagers today have never experienced directly, so their only exposure to it might be like other media, like maybe that's what they call their channel local something, because uh, maybe
Yeah.
they like it's what they know, so they just translate it into. But yeah, I see a lot like that. There's a lot of, well, there's also like there's everything because it's become this whole genre, I guess. But a lot of it I've seen is like just people starting out experimenting with um, a, a pre-established model, I guess, something that's become a
Yeah.
sort of a template, which I guess
Yeah.
helps people start.
Yeah. And I think that that's good. I think that I've struggled with how to differentiate it. Like, I don't want them all to be broadcast, then interruption, emergency warning, something
Mm,
bad happened. I don't want them to all be that. So I'd like them each to have a different feel when I do them. But there's still a lot of meat on that bone. Like,
mm,
the EAS noise is scary,
yeah.
and it still exists. Uh, I'm trying to remember, like, other countries have different sounds. I'm not sure
Oh,
what
yeah,
sound
there
is
were a lot
there,
of
but
them. There was like a compilation of them being shared around a
yeah,
few months ago, and I think the Italian one, or I don't know if the Italian or the Greek one, was like party music. It was amazing.
yeah. Like, I think there's one it's like the Japan one it's like polite sound, where if you live there and you know what the sound means, you're like, oh, what's going on? But if you're visiting, you might be like, what's that? That's nice.
Pleasant
What
little
is that?
chime.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. But no, I like analog horror is super cool, and I love that aesthetic. And I think that it's tougher now because we, for there to be horror, you have to have questions. You have to have something unanswered.
Hmm.
And old media fails. Magnetic tape fails, and record players fail, and cassettes fail. Not like digital doesn't fail as easily. I mean, I know you
Hmm.
get glitches, but there's a
You,
less uncertainty,
yeah, but
you know?
you've, I guess it's, I don't know how much you're gonna like continue through that, but the last episode of Local 58 was this transition to digital, and there were a lot of like digital glitches and stuff, and I think there's a lot to be explored in like translating that glitchy, broken analog media
Mm-hmm.
into its digital
Yeah.
equivalent. I was thinking uh, horror. That was one of those ideas that popped into my head, and I probably won't do anything with it because it's not something that maybe has a lot of meat in its bone. But like horror based
Mm.
in a video posted to early YouTube 2005, and it's 240p or whatever the resolution was back then, and it's someone playing I was gonna say Minecraft, but Minecraft is from later. But whatever game, or just from the very early days of Minecraft, someone playing that, and it devolves into this horror thing. And there's like it's crunchy, bad quality video from a
Oh
capture,
yeah.
one of those like old screen capture
It's like shareware
programs.
thing. It's like,
Yeah,
register to remove this message or whatever.
unregistered hypercam, I think was the classic.
Yeah.
There's like maybe very bad mic quality. There's something to it that I think
No,
is maybe too
but you gotta.
new for people to recognize that they may be more vintage quality. But I think it's there, and somebody one day is gonna make something like that,
Yeah, I feel
and it's
like they
gonna be
could have
great.
made it now, and we just haven't discovered it
I
yet.
mean,
But
yeah.
something about that, like there has to be ambiguity in the message, in the medium. And, yeah, I like the idea of, um, like, uh, what is it, pareidolia or whatever, where you
Hmm.
find faces in things
Pareidolia,
and
yes.
yeah, and there's, the static doesn't resolve to 100% random. Like I can see something behind there, and I don't
Hmm.
like that. I think that that's, I think that there's a lot of space there via, or whether that's, analog error, digital error. I think it's crucial.
Hmm.
But I still feel like there's got to be a way to do it where, what if there was a thing that was perfectly recorded and there was still, how would you introduce ambiguity into it?
Hmm.
Like I know there's always a way to do it. Um, but that is part of why I like to work in this style, because you could hide all kinds of issues
Yeah, yeah,
with
that's true. That's true.
with fuzz on everything.
Some of the people are actually suggesting a bunch of stuff on chat. Oh, there's Petscop. Sanrio says, "Have you seen Petscop?"
I haven't seen very much of it because some of these I don't know where to start. You
Hmm.
know, I don't know how to enter the space.
I'll
Um,
send you the Petscop is very linear. It's just a series of videos. There's
mm,
no. I don't think there's like adjacent things that you have to hunt around. It's just this one channel. You start from the beginning, go towards the end.
oh, okay.
But it's a story that's told in such a smart way because it
Mm,
starts as well. It starts. It's the whole conceit of the story is this kid has found this old demo version of this N64 game that was never released. That kind of like there's this nostalgia thing, and there's this whole
yeah.
old media thing to it. But he's playing it as this YouTube Let's Play. It's told
Mm,
through the lens of a YouTube Let's Play. So it's just a kid doing the first YouTube Let's Play. It's kind of wonky, and they're kind of exploring
mm,
this game, and they keep finding stuff hidden, and there's secrets within secrets, and you start seeing like there's the maybe like figuring out the story of the development, like who made it, and like how did this end up becoming a game. And I'm not going to spoil anything
yeah.
for you or for people in chat who haven't seen Petscop, but it's highly recommended because it really is a great example of using this very digital um, storytelling device, which is the Let's Play, the YouTube Let's Play video, as a delivery method to tell this story. Also, the person that did it like practically developed this whole game to just tell this story. Right?
Yeah.
It's not a game you can play out there. It's just a game that they created as a method to do this Let's Play. So I don't know how playable it actually is, but they actually did a bunch of work.
Yeah. Yeah, I like, it doesn't matter if it's playable. I just need to, as an audience member, I need to watch it and believe that it's playable, that it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
It makes
Like, and I
like you
want,
you can you can definitely believe it's a video game. I think it was just
mm,
probably developed in some I don't know exactly how it was done, but probably developed in a modern um,
you can always go
engine. Yeah.
backward. Yeah,
Hmm.
you can do it in a modern engine and then just the resolution to,
Exactly, and make it look like
640 or
an
whatever.
X64 game.
Yeah.
I think Petscop is a great example of where that might be heading towards because it still has that nostalgia thing. There's errors in the fact that it's a video game. So there's going to be glitches. There's going to be the inherent errors of the medium more than of the
Yeah.
video recording itself, and they use that
Yeah.
to great effect.
Yeah, that's super valid. I think there's a ton of stuff to be done there. I'm trying to think of other stuff that I've seen that reaches that. Oh, it started to get passed around online. Who linked to it? Was it? I think it might have been Trevor Henderson, but it's a video of looks like it was taken on Snapchat, but there's no audio, and it's like a woman in a closet peeking out. Do you know that one?
Oh, I've seen it. Yes, yes, yes.
I don't know what the origin of it is.
I think it might be some sort of weird hybrid where somebody took footage, changed the context, and added this hack Snapchat thing. It's like this weird Frankenstein monster, but that ended up in this really cool thing.
Yeah, I don't. So what I would love to know is like, does it exist like that as intended? Just this, 10 seconds. Or is it taken out of context from another thing? But as given, it's such a fascinating, uh, you know, strange, like, and the emotion on the woman's face is perfect because it's inscrutable.
Yeah.
It's almost as though if you were a predator that was to adopt a kind face, that is what you would put on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and like just like I hold a little bit longer until they come a little bit closer. Like it's done correctly. It's so good and solid. Um, but you know what? I think you're right. We were talking about ephemera before.
Mm-hmm.
There's something important about that thing as a found piece and as a moment that will not be resolved
Mm.
because there's no more after it. We don't see what happened. It just sits and we're forced to wonder about it.
That's true. Yeah, I really
At least
like it.
that piece, I don't know, maybe it's like part 13 of a
Yeah, we don't
80,
know.
like I don't know what it is.
If someone in chat knows the origin of that, let us know so maybe we can figure the context out. Because yeah, I think maybe it's a case of something that was deliberately made and just taken out of context. I like Counter Cove where you remove the context and it gives
Yeah.
this different dimension. But maybe it was Frankenstein. To me, it felt when I saw it, it felt like maybe there's this footage and that somebody did, like some kids did to be kind of creepy, but somebody then remove the audio to remove maybe the giggling kids and add it. Then somebody else came in and added a caption. Those kinds of weird Frankenstein things that can
Oh,
happen on the
yeah,
internet.
yeah. I see. Yeah, yeah. Where and I think that's cool and valid. Like I would
Mm.
love to see that then inspire somebody to do more with it, Not with that specific thing, but just like how can I evoke that tone,
Mm-hmm.
And I see like as far as people who are interested in doing more analog horror or other projects like that, every project I've ever done started from me liking something and then saying, "Oh, I like it, but I wouldn't have done it this way. Let me try to do it. I'll try to do something else with it." And that's
I do that
like
a lot.
it just made me interested to see, well, maybe I can do it. And a lot of times I can't do it, and I
Mm.
understand why. But sometimes it's like, oh no, it was fun to examine and get into the mindset and all that.
Something I think I have the same mindset. I see a movie I like, and you know how a lot of people do fan art. I guess I don't draw a lot. It's not my strong suit. I just combine pictures together. So fan art is
Mhm.
not something I'm really suited to do. So instead, my
Yeah.
brain goes to, oh, what did I like about this, and how can I do something like it? It sometimes it ends up being something completely different that you couldn't even tell that the inspiration came from it. But it just like gets my gears turning, I guess. So I think we may have a
No,
similar
yeah.
process in that.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's definitely a way to avoid being disappointed by stuff.
Mm,
He's like, why don't they do a better job with it? I don't know why. That's something being made for that audience. But if you want to try something, if you want to see something different, can you make it? Can you produce it? You
exactly.
know?
You're out there, if you're hearing this, just make stuff.
Just make it. And it's not going to be good to start with, and that's fine.
That's fine. I
Yeah,
think
I
a lot of
don't
people
remember the
see
first
this.
drafts of mine, but they weren't good.
Yeah,
Not great.
I think a lot of people will see, uh, you know, people they admire or they whose work they like on online or wherever, and they'll assume it just came out of thin air. But this person,
No.
before doing this cool thing, was doing shitty stuff for years, probably like shitty, but like not as good.
Yeah, like, and they didn't, it's not uploaded to the same place, so you don't never get to see that. You just assume it's,
But sometimes you just don't scroll back enough to see. If you go to my
Yeah.
Instagram and you scroll back enough, you'll see very bad photoshops that I did when I was starting out years ago, and that's fine.
And
I
it's like,
own up to it.
why didn't you think he just made that stuff, amazing from the get-go? Why didn't you scroll back in his Instagram? And it's like, well, because they didn't look good. I wasn't interested in them. Yeah, but he had to make them in order to get to these good ones.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's generally good mentality to have. You see stuff online. There's a lot of who said, "Have you seen the recent Backrooms video?" Somebody pointed out.
Yeah, it was Kane Pixels.
King
Yeah, he
Pixels,
was
yes,
like 16 years old, made it.
yes,
I thought it was excellent, excellent.
excellent stuff.
Um, and what I really liked about it is how restrained it was. I would love to know how much of it was practical and how much of it was effects work.
It
Because I
seems
think
to
that
be.
some of it,
I mean, at the first part where they're just hanging out, that's like just a regular video. I think when they
yeah,
go into the back rooms, it's just all digital, and
it
it's
might
just
be
very well
all
hidden
digital.
by this old,
The filters and all that
yes,
stuff.
all the
Yeah.
filters. They hid all
Yeah.
the you could still see the like 3D stuff. Like you could still notice it, but it was the
I
filters
think
hid
to
it very well.
me, the filters hide it, but then one of the best pieces of that too is then if it is all digital, the mimicking of the camera movement
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah,
is
that's true.
so. I feel like there's a lot of give and like where you would pivot a camera that's handheld, as opposed to like trying to emulate that on a
Mm.
spline in animating it. Like it looks like somebody's holding a camera and walking around.
I've seen. I have no idea if this was made like this, but what
Mhm.
it made me think while I was watching it that there's this. I don't know if it's plugin or something you can just do on Blender, where you can actually get your phone, or I think it's with your phone, and you can move it
Oh,
around
like
like
an
a camera.
accelerometer.
And yes,
Yeah,
and it notices the movement of the camera and makes that the movement within the scene. I've seen that
yeah.
around. I know there's a method to do it.
I would love to figure that one out,
Yeah.
because that would open up so much. Um, but yeah, a lot of the stuff like we're again what we were talking about before. It's like how much is verisimilitude and how much is cheating it so that you can tell a story.
Mm,
Uh, you know, where if you were scared and crawling through a vent, would you be holding the camera in front of you? It's like no, maybe,
yeah.
but like that's okay. I'd probably turn the camera off and it would be behind me. But that's not a story. That's not enough, you
Yeah.
know.
You need to see
It's
it.
okay.
I
No,
also
but it was
thought
well
like
done.
there's this
Yeah.
whole I just know like the original story of the Backrooms, this original like 4chan post that was passed around like
Yeah.
so many times. And apparently, there's people that have been doing this complicated lore for it with levels and
Yeah.
creatures, and I think that kind of detracts. Well, like power to them, they're creating this world, but that kind of detracts from the
It's
purity and the coolness of this like just infinite empty space.
yeah.
To the point
I
where
I
if I had to remove one thing from that video, it would be the creature, and I wouldn't because I think it would be a very boring video if there was nothing in it, no action. But I
mhm.
just like the idea of this just endless featureless space a lot. That it's
Mhm.
to me it's scarier if there's absolutely nothing in it than if there's a creature.
Yeah.
in my
I
brain.
liked the I mean, I liked a lot of the ideas of, there was like the dumpster there, and it's just sort of like stuff that fell through. Um, and I didn't understand quite like that huge space that was like exit and radioactive signs, and there's like these hallways upon hallways, like in a grid.
Yeah, I think that was
I'm
like
not sure what
teasing
that
to
would
that whole
indicate.
lore, deeper
Yeah.
thing, like teasing that it's there,
Um,
but just leaving it there.
But I mean, I like the original conceit of like being behind the geometry of our world.
Mm.
But I think it did everything that it needed to do. There was also no stupid decisions made by the protagonist, Like
That's
I
always
felt
good.
like it was handled like, oh, that makes sense, rather than,
Mm.
you know,
I was
if
so
the person was
expecting. I
like,
think there
I'm gonna
was
fight it.
at one point in the video you see it points to some writing on a wall and it says "Don't move," and I was like, oh, it's clearly at some point the protagonist is gonna try and stop and hold their breath, and the creature's gonna get it, and that's gonna be the end of the video. I was so sure about it, but no,
Yeah.
they actually
No,
like
we didn't do that. Yeah.
no
Honestly,
dumb
like
decisions.
if I yeah, if I was in that position, if I was in that space and I came across writing on the wall that says don't move or whatever it says, I'm not gonna do it. I don't think I could follow that guideline, you
No,
know?
scary
I
creature
wouldn't
behind
do
you, like.
that. It didn't work. Yeah. How do I know it didn't write that on the wall? This is his house.
Sure.
Why he did that, and then I stand there and he eats
Very
me.
good point. Very good point.
Yeah.
Mm. But like circling back to I guess like even Petscop and back to Counter Cove, there's something about using this medium as part of the story, like forum posts, which was the conceit of Counter Cove, which brought in this extra level of relatability or realism that people thought it was real, and with Petscop we talked about before, it's YouTube Let's Play, and
Yeah.
there's I don't know, but for a lot of things I do, it's like old letters and documents, and it's kind of like this crate you found in an attic. It has that
Yeah.
vibe. I think there's a
I
lot
want to
about
work with like artifacts. I care about
artifacts.
artifacts. Uh, rather, and I think maybe that's also part of why analog horror is so interesting is the
Mm.
approach. And I mean, I would include what you're doing too, because it's like found material that's being presented. Is that there really is not a lot of fanfare.
Mm.
It's just here it is. It's
There's
done straight faced.
I have a name
Petscop,
for
I
it.
guess.
That's just
Yeah.
a pet name for me. I don't know if anybody ever uses it, but I call it found horror as opposed to found footage, which is more specifically a video thing.
Yeah.
It's horror that is not directly presented to you. You just find an artifact, like you say, of that thing happening. You're not
Yeah.
seeing. You're not seeing directly this old TV recording that was played in the 90s. It's you're seeing it years later, far removed from this thing that happened, and you're just seeing the outcomes. And I think there's a very big difference with like more traditional horror, like a monster's running behind you, right? A monster's running behind you. What's your impulse as a reader of that? So it's like get back.
Go.
But if you
Yeah.
see an artifact of something that doesn't present any any actual danger to you, you it makes you want to go forward. It makes you like want to know more. It's
Yeah.
a morbid curiosity. I
I
love
I
that
was
stuff.
I always used the metaphor of like, is it scary if you see a ghost in the attic and it comes at you and you run away and maybe you leave your house,
Hmm.
you know exactly what to do. But if you see a ghost in your attic and it notices you and then it vanishes, you don't know what is the clear path. You don't know if it'll happen again. Like there's it's more threatening, it's more lingering to not have the instant like, oh no, the thing's after me, or there's the danger. Like, I let us sit in it for a while. Let it
Mm.
build. It's too clear when the threat is immediate. Uh, yeah, I much prefer that type of thing. Oh, I had another thing to say about that found horror. Oh, I remember. It's that one of the things that I wanted to do also with Local 58 is to um not have it be a story about, I mean, it's not really a story really, but
Mm.
it's a world. But like, I didn't want it to be one where there were characters.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you introduce a point of view character, like, even like, hi, I'm an archive keeper and I found this weird tape and I'm uploading it, I immediately am worried about him,
Mm-hmm.
not about me. I'm looking at it, but it's his problem. If I just show you the video, it's your problem. Why did
You're
you
the
stumble
archivist
on
that
this?
found it. Yeah,
You
yeah,
are
yeah.
the one who found it, and
I
it's
like
your
that.
problem. Yeah, I like that much better.
I like that. I do that kind of thing a lot. Like I do, for example, I will have a character, but he would be the character that has sent you these documents. Like it is there's just an extra layer in between you and
Yeah,
the document, just like going through several
as long
hands.
as I feel like as long as there is a little, not full meta, but like an aspect where it becomes the viewer's concern beyond them, like it's participatory, like it's actually, it's
Mm.
not them being, I'm scared of a scary movie. It's like, no, I'm now in the space where this thing is happening and is bad. There's a um a podcast that I did not like in the end, but it started super well. uh I forget, I think it's called The Signal, something like that.
Mm.
As it is like 6, 7, 8 years ago. But it starts out as like this NPR, like,
Mm.
we're talking about health and this interesting thing, and listen to this sound that's from space. So, we're thinking about it and whatever, and like, what could this be? Interesting. Scientists and astronomers, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we heard it. Thank you for listening. Goodbye. Next week's edition was, if you haven't listened to last week's Don't, we should not have included the audio because listeners have reported that they're getting sick after having heard it. And it's like, that's great because you've made it my problem. And I did
Yes,
listen
that is
to it.
very
Like that,
good.
it's so fun to start it with that. It's like, oh man, what'd you do that for? Like, that puts me in that space. Now I have to find out what's going on.
It's a smarter equivalent of those email chains where like you've been cursed, now you have to pass it on.
Yeah. It's
It
like, well, I
puts you
don't
in
want to
the
be
horror.
cursed by this guy. Yeah. I especially like the device of horror where I did this in Brood Hollow, but like the idea of being given information and then to determine the way forward, you assemble it, and you have actually assembled it completely wrong and you have screwed up. And you, instead of shutting the door, you open the door wide open.
Mm.
That's a super cool, like, uh, device that I enjoy.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I do, for example, with my main series, which is the one with the big bugs, Megalomorpha,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
this whole like there's nobody figuring out the story for you, but it's a collection of short stories with a beginning and end that are supposed to be
Mhm.
self-contained. Like, for example, every story will end with, if this cult that worship these bugs, uh, they eventually get shut down. Like they don't grow, they don't accomplish their objectives, because then everybody would know
Mhm.
about that. And you'd be like,
Yeah.
I would know if a bug cults took over the world. Like, sure. So they have to be self-contained in that way. But they're each
Mhm.
one little piece of a puzzle that I'm never going to put together for anyone. And if you want to put together, and you probably put it together wrong, using your own guesses, because there's a lot of, I'm not going to give all the answers. And that's part of the fun of it. Like, just let people
Yeah.
piece together the things wrong and debate like what's going on.
Yeah, I've thought like people like I think that to assess the tone of Local 58 as presented so far, like people could get that. They would understand what feels appropriate or doesn't.
Mhm.
And that's like the thing that I write from, which is lore that's like, well, how would I even expose this to like I can't deliver this even within the format because it's too big and
Mm.
with the constraints that I've given myself, where it's like no voiceover, I don't want to have a character talking to you. And I want to use as much public domain material as I can
Mm.
if I have to show something.
This
Um,
is, by the way, a PSA for you and for everyone, because I found out the other day, starting this in January this year, every music record since the invention of records until 1922 is public domain now.
hey,
They're all out there. You can go to the Internet
get
Archive
'em.
and find like tens of thousands of them. I think the total is 400,000 or something like that. Uh,
Yeah.
Tons of old music, basically all
No.
the jazz era, the beginning of the jazz era, 1920s is.
Yeah, we're starting to get into some eras of good material that's public domain and
Yeah.
not just a bunch of, I've heard like one of the things are in the contingency. I needed audio of the national anthem, and
Mm.
it was it's like the United States Marine Band from like 1910. And it's hard to make that sound like it's not from 1910. I didn't want it to be that old, but
Yeah. I get, and
it's
recordings are
like,
so scratchy and so.
yeah, it's not accurate to what it might have sounded like, but it's safe to use, and so I did it.
Yeah. God, public domain is
But that's
hard.
good.
Finding things public domain.
There's a lot of weird like bad faith. Like I uploaded it, but I don't know for sure, but I'm saying it is. It's like, well, that doesn't. Then I'll get sued for using it, so I don't trust it. It's tough to research, but
Yeah, really tough to know. That's why I
yeah.
do a lot of stuff with old pictures, because it's public domain. Like, you can't go
Yeah.
wrong if the picture is super old. It's from 1910. Like,
Yeah.
by default, it's gonna be public domain.
But
Also,
then you have to give into the whole
anything published by U.S. government agencies is public domain, and I love that. So much good material.
yeah, there's a lot of great aesthetic stuff from that. Like there's these old Jam Handy videos and Department of Defense, like talking about, how to repair a TV for that matter. Like there's all kinds of videos about diseases you may encounter, and it's like that's cool. Thank you. Yes, please. Starting to get to the era of the style that I can mimic
Mm.
without it seeming too old or too corny.
Yeah, yeah, God, and I imagine it's much harder with video too, because I
Yeah,
pictures are like for old stuff is easier to find. Music in some cases, there was a whole record thing that the records themselves weren't public domain. The music was that kind of. Now that's a bit clearer, but yeah,
yeah.
so.
A thing I've encountered recently too is that in trying to research video, is that if you come across a public domain thing, you may find a copy of it that is available, but it was ripped at 300 320 by 200 or some
Hmm.
absurd. So it's like, well, now it's available to me, but it's a pixelated transfer and I can't use it because it looks like it's too modern. Like it doesn't make sense. What I'd love is an original 4K film transfer, but no, that's not gonna happen. I'd settle for 480.
Anything
Oh,
decent.
somebody in that's actually a super good point, even though I misread the comment. Louse Grouse said, the government has declared you public domain with the emergency sound. I misread it, but one of the things that I'm moving away from or trying to find a way around is that the emergency sound is not public domain.
No?
So like as long as I've used it on YouTube, that's okay. There's no issue, but it couldn't be aired on television because I would be fined for using the emergency sound.
Okay.
And apparently somebody, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel on his show, he did that in a sketch where he made an emergency alert sound and then some joke, and he was fined because you're not
Mm,
allowed to use the sound because that's a sound that means we're not kidding. This is a real thing.
that's
So I'm trying to
interesting.
figure out how do I. All right, I don't want to get in trouble there either. I want to find a sound that is similar, unique, dissonant,
Hmm.
but isn't that sound.
Maybe one from another country. I mean, you couldn't
I've
play it in
looked,
that
yeah,
country probably, but you could potentially
yeah,
play in the US because there's not that limitation of doing an actual emergency. I don't
yeah.
know.
I figure if I use other tones, like there's got to be a way around that. There's got to be a way around that.
Yeah, it can probably. I
I
don't
want
know.
to
I'm
evoke
so
it.
bad at audio that I don't have a lot of imagination for that. But I bet you can recreate something that sounds like emergency alerts while not being the
Yeah,
same
and
tones, which is like legally distinct.
I always think about it like, you know, the only reason why that sound is meaningful is because it's the one we've heard and we've lived with it and we've sat with it and we
Hmm.
know it. But I'm like, well, why don't I want to make a sound? How come it doesn't sound correct? And so I start thinking of it rather than it's just I'm familiar with it. It's like, no, they found the right one. They cracked, like, they did the
Oh,
research way more than I could do.
they got the
Any
code.
one person. And they're like, we know the exact most dissonant, upsetting sound that makes everybody pay attention. And I can try, but it's not ever going to come close to that. That's the right one.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that's actually the case, though.
It might be, for all we
Maybe,
know.
yeah. I mean, I'd love to know that they had done that homework and that it's like, no, this is adequately distressing. That's exactly what
Just
we want.
scientists in a lab trying to find the most jarring sounds. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
How that research happened.
What if I accidentally come up with the most calming sound and then I've done the wrong thing?
See, it's the
I
voice.
like,
It's the voice thing all over again. We're doing
yeah,
horror, but with our voices, we're making people go to sleep. It's not. It's not
it's
a.
just relaxing. Yeah. I want to hear an emergency alert sound that's just about things are good. We're just having a great time and have a great night. That's the that's the sound we're missing. We need that sound right now.
Exactly. Somebody says, Zaddy says, would you be able to play the sound reversed? Seems like a
I
possibly legally distinct, but I don't know.
No, that one is it's two or three tones sitting on top of each other, and I think that they are. It doesn't matter if it's a square wave or a sine wave. I think that reversed would sound identical. I think it would be the same sound. So I don't think you're getting. I wouldn't be. I could say, "Hey, I inverted it," and they'd say, "No, fine." We couldn't tell. My sound starts half a cycle late, but it's the
It's
same sound.
slightly misaligned, just legally distinct.
Just a little bit, yeah.
uh, okay, here's a question from chat from before I missed. Mao asked, which is a project of yours that changed, which is the project that changed the most from its initial idea to its final?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think that let me go back in my catalog, in my mind of each Local 58, because that's where a lot of the time in making them, I have to take time to play with them in
Mm,
order to see what's functional. I think that I remember that in the very first one, originally it was much more straightforward, where it was like, why don't you go outside? Why don't you take a look at the moon? You're gonna like this moon.
mm,
Um, but then I found that block of VHS static, um, and I wanted there to be a warning of like, well, don't look, don't go outside, don't do this. Uh, and it had to become. It's like I realized it doesn't make sense. Like I can't do them both. Like, and it only works if one party is not trustworthy, and the other one is trying to break in and say, no, 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 don't listen to that one, don't listen.
mm.
Um, and so yeah, I just in playing with it, I'm like, okay, well, there has to be two voices. There has to be one that's trying to help us out, and there has to be one that's
Yeah, and that makes
telling you to go
it
out.
way more interesting because you suddenly have like a whole depth to it, you know.
Yeah, some depth. So you can
Hmm.
have like I like the idea of characters being the like the what's the word? Like the intimation of them, like as though there are some voices, and then
Hmm.
you have to choose of what's trustworthy and what's not.
Should we look at the
Um,
moon though? That's
I've looked at the moon since, and nothing happened. Although I will say that after I put that video out, the first I don't know the first week,
Hmm.
I was taking the garbage cans out, and it was a full moon, and I did go like like I just like I saw it twice. Like it shouldn't. It's not right. Not okay to see.
I guess the moon is maybe the only recurring character in Local 58.
Yeah,
The
we
moon
should
comes
hand it to
back.
this moon. I was gonna move away from the moon entirely, and then no, there's too much good stuff in that moon
Yeah.
to avoid it.
Did you and was it stargazing or sky gazing? I don't recall that.
Yeah, sky watching. Yeah,
Sky watching, yeah. Did you draw that moon? Was it a modified picture or something?
I started with a picture of the moon. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to manipulate because
Because
I
it
was
definitely looks
drawing.
like the moon, but there's something like off immediately. You know, like it doesn't click exactly, and I think that works
Yeah,
very well.
in the yeah, in any of the close-ups, like
Mm.
and giving it that atmosphere and like just having those quiet, you know, scenes, just looking and observing, and
Mm.
you have to determine why is it not correct, and then it gets worse as you go, and you start seeing structures on there. Well, a lot of people were saying uh, that there's the one part where the camera pans and there's what looks like a city from above, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's like a thing like what I was intending was like a canal that went into a triangular pit
Mm-hmm.
where in my imagination it was some sort of a ritual, like a bloodletting, like things would be
Mm.
pitched into this great pit of sacrifice, and a lot of people interpreted it as an arrow, and I was like, oh, that's not. It's like, go look at that.
I gotta
If you're
follow the
if you got a
arrow.
telescope, look. It's like, no, that's not it, but I get it. I see why you would think that.
What's it you at the end of that video? Going
Yeah,
like
I
holding
was
your hands
there.
in
I was doing that. Yeah. I had I have a TikTok that I don't use very frequently, but I saw somebody like had taken part of the that video, or the first one was like don't look at the moon, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
Uh and they were using those images and from the stills of the moon that I had done, and they were presenting it as real or ephemeral, unknown
Mm.
origin. And so I stitched it, and I was like, no. And I did I took the filters off. So I was like, here's my drawing that I. And then the scene where the guy at the end is observing the moon. I took all the filters off of that, and you could see it's clearly me in my pajamas, like just I silhouetted that, but that's me stooped over. Easy. Great. It's all smoke and mirrors.
I love to do that when someone does the whole like is it real thing. I'll just send them because I do not all but a big chunk of my art I do it on Twitch. So there's always a
Yeah.
recording of me doing that thing specifically. So or I can just send them the original image that I took. But I love sending them. Just here
Yeah.
you can
Here's the
see
picture.
exactly
Yeah.
how I made it. There's no
Was it just
secrets.
turn layers off? It's like here's the final boop boop boop, lights
Yeah, you
gone,
can
boop
just turn
boop.
them off
Like,
and
yeah.
suddenly and you can see suddenly you see all the jankiness once you there's always when you
Yeah.
remove the shadows layer suddenly everything goes like stark and
Right.
horrible.
It's
It's
just
very
shapes, and it's
yeah
like, ah.
it was
Yeah.
very funny.
No, it's super fun, and your work is very good, and I enjoy your the artifacts you presented.
God,
It's a
you know what I'm
lovely.
doing currently? My little side projects. As I have a huge scanner thing here,
Mm,
and I have a pile of old, mostly letters from my grandpa, just
mm,
from my grandpa to other people, and
yeah,
like like pamphlets. I don't know if the camera will pick it up very
yeah.
well. I've been scanning those at like super high quality, and to just get like I'm getting so much old paper textures. I'm gonna have to share it with people because these are some amazing resources. Some French ads about a
Oh, delicious.
hairdo thing, like
Yeah, that stuff that you like. We all like to search the internet for resources for stuff that we're making, but it is the same pool. And I'm always afraid that it's like I'll use this thing. It's like, oh well, this other guy used the same thing because that's the only
yeah,
one that somebody scanned. You can scan this new stuff and use it and know that nobody
exactly.
else is using it.
I'll share
Yeah.
it later, but after the ones I want to use first, I'll take a little bit. I'll first use them and then put them out.
Yeah, then make them available. But
That way,
first,
people
you have
will
first
do like, oh,
dibs.
that's already been used.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that belongs to you.
Yeah, of course, there's like stuff I can't share, like personal correspondence from my grandpa. Like, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
put that out,
You
but
owe it to us. That's public domain. What year did you write those? Give that to me. 22? It's mine. I get to have it.
but yeah, I would love it. God, there's another whole pile here. Just touristic
Yeah.
brochures.
Those are I love the design of brochures like from any
Yeah,
time before 1950, like the
the,
aesthetic of the
I
like
think this one's from. It must be from the 50s, but that's all their newer stuff. Some great stuff and postcards, and I'm loving it. I
yeah.
love
I
old analog stuff.
There is a joy in even just sifting and considering what can be done, like and
Mm,
finding a placement of an image or a thing and saying like I could do this, it would be so easy to manipulate this.
yeah.
That's I think that's part of the fun of making it is how you can fit the pieces together in some way that hasn't been done already.
Kris, if you ever want a Photoshop thing for Local 58, just let me know. I know you like to do all the stuff yourself.
I like I
if
like
you,
to do it myself, but like as a just as a oh I don't want to bother anybody. I'll figure out how to do it. You know, like that's
it would
okay.
be cool. I love collaborative stuff just for the sake of it. I love doing just finding another artist that can maybe uh, do something you can't, and like best
Yeah.
strengths of the two to create something new.
No, I would love to do something like that. And if it's a pure collaboration, that's great. If it's something I use, then I would pay you for your time. I know that's not the point of what you're asking to get work
Oh,
out of it, but I would but
I just like collaborating.
yeah, I enjoy like yeah, I like to see the two flavors,
Mm.
how we could blend it. Because I
I did
mean,
this
yeah, I
one
think we have the
picture.
same mindset of finding like pieces from the past that are it's
Yeah,
the observer's problem to dissect, where we don't give them the answers.
just giving them evidence. I did this one recently for. I mean, you probably don't know it because they have like 1,000 subscribers, something like that. But there's this. I guess you could call it analog horror. It's not really horror. It's just and that has that vibe, but it's really well produced.
Mhm.
It's called British Cryptids. Have you seen it?
Mm. No,
Oh,
no, I'm looking for it
it's
right now.
very good. And I'm waiting for them to blow up because they do some great stuff. And it says that this mini documentaries, um, supposedly like filmed in the I think it's the 70s or the 80s, with a very soft spoken British voiceover
Oh,
talking about these made up cryptids. They're like completely, they're not taking real stuff. They're completely making up these cryptids and making up all this evidence for them, like old stories and maybe there's a Viking rune that kind of looks like it, and It's incredibly creative. I think
These
you'll
are
like it a
really
lot.
well made, and even
Mm.
stylistically, like they nailed it.
Mm.
Ah, wow, yeah. No, I have to watch
Yeah,
these.
watch the.
I'm
But
gonna watch.
they're fantastic stuff, and the stories they make up are. And yeah, it's not horror. It's just cryptids. It kind of fits the same. I guess in the same corner of the internet, but
Oh,
uh,
it's delicious. Even the little bits that I'm seeing through there, like they have the camera, the shutter of analog Chiron of
yes,
overlays and stuff like that.
they make their own
That's
music
so well
too.
made.
It's fantastic. Gonna put in. I
Yeah,
put it in
I had to
chats.
look up, yeah, British Cryptids
Hmm.
YouTube, and then I found
And
the channel.
for the next video, I like collab style because they're this tiny production. They're no, I'm not gonna like, hey, pay me to this, but I made a
Oh
picture for
yeah,
their
I know
next
that
video, and I'm like, yeah, just
yeah.
use it. It's I want to contribute. It's fun.
No, absolutely. Like I like to do that stuff for fun too.
Mm.
That's not a commercial like, hey, I better be compensated. No. Some things we start by doing this stuff for joy.
Yeah.
And I would rather it be made out of that sensibility than, you know, if
Hmm.
you're able to do it because you love it, then by all means.
So
Like
I
that's
think it's
why
the
I stuck
cool
with it.
thing about this whole like internet side of thing. Like specifically, we're doing horror, but you could apply it to internal things. I bet that it's just a lot of passion projects that don't have the budget or that they don't look to to monetize them specifically. Like most people will have a Patreon and stuff like that, but they just want to put stuff out there. I love doing that. I just love
Yeah.
just sharing
I
stuff.
I feel like it's like the one common thread um about creators who are doing it and versus creators who gave up on it was that they liked doing the work more than they were worried about it being successful or
Mm.
gaining or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, all you have left is if you're interested in it or not. And if you're not interested in doing it and you're like, it's been a month, how come it's not popular yet?
Mm.
Well, this is the wrong approach. It's the wrong reason to do it because you should be doing it because you enjoy it and you feel like it has to exist because those are the people that stick with it long enough to eventually,
Because
two
you gotta
years,
be doing it
three,
for a
four.
while. You gotta
Yeah.
put a lot of work
None
in.
of this is instant. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. But I like the passion behind it, that it is just about what you want to see and what you want to share and not about, uh, I don't like money very much. I wish it didn't exist because
Me,
I feel
exactly
like
my
we would see
thoughts.
so many more cool things without it.
Yeah, I just if if I could survive without money, I would just dedicate myself entirely to doing art, and I would be so much happier about it because I wouldn't have to,
Yeah.
pester people like, "Hey, subscribe to my Patreon." Maybe I would still send
Yeah.
postcards to people if they paid me big for or just for whatever reason, but because it's fun. But there's not that
The driver, the fear.
the fear behind it. Like you got to make rent.
Yeah, I don't want to have to deal with that. Yeah, but what are you gonna do? That's the true horror.
The true horror is real life, is what we've learned today.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I do need to jump off. As much as I've enjoyed speaking with you. I don't
Yeah,
know
we're
how
going on for a
frequently,
little
but
while.
I hope you'll have me again.
I would love to. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. Maybe
Yeah,
when
I
there's
feel like
more local 58 stuff, and we can do theories about it and talk about all the lore. I'm kidding.
we can
I'm
come
kidding.
to it as a. Actually, yeah, like I would love to pick apart another series and see if I can come up with lore or theories where,
Oh my god, that would
and
be
see
fun. Just like
how remotely close or not close I get.
do the other way around. Like we're used to our stuff being picked apart. We're just
Yeah, it's like I'll pick that one
apply
apart.
that.
Is it aliens? I bet it's all aliens.
It's aliens. There's
Mandela
always
catalog,
aliens.
aliens. I knew it.
All along. Gemini Home
Yeah.
Entertainment. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good
Gemini
one.
Home Entertainment, aliens.
Aliens.
Monument Mythos, aliens. Done. easy. Got the rest of the day to do whatever I want because I knocked these 3 out.
Well, Kris, it's been a blast having you. I really hope
Very much.
I
Yeah.
really hope we can come back to it someday and continue talking about this stuff because a lot more to cover.
Yeah, it was lovely to meet you.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I'll sign off with you and then say bye to chat. So you have a great night, Kris. Everyone say good night to Kris. You deserve some sleep after talking so much. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, have a good one.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
And hold on, as you see my camera appear. Hey, that's a different point of view. Hey, everybody. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I think we talked about a lot of interesting stuff. What do you guys think? We had a lot more to talk about in the future too, which is something, more things to consider, y'all. Yeah, it was wholesome. It was. I think we were right at the beginning that we both have a relaxing voice. So I hope nobody fell asleep and missed some good part of the conversation. We talked about a lot, and it's only been an hour and 50. So yeah, we covered a lot of ground. Yes, if you joined in late or you're just joining in now, the VOD will be up immediately after this. Like, you can see it when the stream ends. You'll be able to see the VOD. Or if you wait a little bit, I'll just have a permanent VOD that I'll post on Twitter, so it doesn't disappear in 15 days. But yeah, thank you, everybody. If you guys want some just regular horror art, tomorrow I'll be streaming some just regular Photoshop horror stuff. And on Wednesdays, Fridays, like that every day. The next podcast episode won't be able to be like, it's usually every 2 weeks on Sunday. 2 weeks from now on Sunday, I won't be here. So I'll try to do it on Saturday instead, if all goes well. We'll see. Depends on who can come, etc. So I'll keep you guys posted. And yeah, I really enjoy doing this. So I hope you guys do as well. So yeah, guys, our old episodes archived. Yes, they are all in this Twitch channel. If you go to the videos tab below me, you can find the little folder, which is House of Horrors, and you can see all the previous episodes. We've had a lot of great guests so far, so if you guys want more content like this, you got it. That's a lot. So yeah, guys, thank you very much, and I will see you tomorrow. Till then, I hope you guys take care.